the work shouldn't be hard is toxic to the code. It's toxic to the genetic code because the work being hard is what makes us human. The growth being something that is uncomfortable and being willing to reach, being willing to strive. It's in every story across time. It's in the archetype. It's in the hero's journey. It's in the heroine's journey. Something must die. It must die. It's very, very clear in the mythology, which is the archetypes of our psyche. But something has to die.
Welcome to the Thrive with Kate Stillman podcast, made for you by us.
How's everyone doing?
Good. Great.
Good?
Okay.
Good? Mm-hmm. Ooh, Valerie's having breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. All right, let's see what's on the agenda. 80-20 is fractal pattern, inside a pattern, inside a pattern, inside a pattern, orders of magnitude, and the 80-20 rule. Okay, so I'll talk for a hot minute. Do you want a story or do you want
Story.
I think we want a story. Okay, so yeah, well, that we can save that one. That one is that's another story. Yeah, so we thought Lucky and I just went and got some water and saw the fresh bear scat. Mostly service berry. It looks like maybe a little choke cherry in there. And the bear scat. So this property, I saw it. My husband and I, it was COVID. It was the beginning. It was April. And I had a lot of cash in the bank, like close to $1 million in the bank. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, I was sensing massive inflation coming. And I'm like, this is so dumb. I need it. Like, I need to get cash out and put it into a better store of value. That's fun. That works with strategy that we use in Club Hero, Master View, Awake Living. So it's just like running strategy, smoking weed, drinking beer, and the truck on date night, like getting away from, the 13-year-old or however old she was. Not getting away from, but just doing their own thing. This is when there were no bars, there were no restaurants open, that kind of thing. And we're driving around just like looking at properties and seeing things, and it's like nothing's right. And we're kind of coming back from looking out Alta North Road, and there's a sign in the ditch at the corner, like halfway down the ditch is this like battered sign that had made it through the winter with all the snowplows going by and the sand trucks and all that. So it's like this real estate sign that looks like it's 20 years old. And I look at it, and my friend Kathy Runyon's name is on it, who's one of my early yoga clients way back. And the late Kathy, because she's died of cancer. And you'll see her property in town has now become there's a wine bar, and then there's like a little community center. So I call Kathy. Well, actually, no, so I see the sign enough to turn into Greenville. We cross the bridge, and I'm like, the other sign is right there, like right at the corner. That's actually a nice sign that hasn't been completely destroyed by the plow trucks and the sand trucks and all the things. And that's where, like, we turn in and we look around, and we're like, it seems like a big square. So I call Kathy. I'm like, what is this? And how long has it been on the market? Why am I standing here right now like that it's mine? And she tells me there's all this part's under a water survey to figure out where they can build houses. And I'm like, why is it such a fucking mess? And they had taken one of those machines that just cuts down all the trees without selecting, the opposite of permaculture, mass destruction. Like anyone that's had surgery, like, oh, I'm just gonna cut you open, and well, you can deal with that later, right? Like that. So that was all along this. There's barbed wire all along the creeks. It was kind of hard to get into the property. There's a lot of just lack of any kind of maintenance. But it felt like mine. Like I felt like I was at home, and I was like, how the fuck am I gonna make it all happened with all of the things? It was 2 properties. The family, the mom who had the vision for the property had died of cancer. the father and the daughter split it to make money on it. So they subdivide because they make more money. And they did this really weird property boundary. He didn't want to sell. She wanted to sell. So it wasn't really for sale, but it kind of was. It was one of these, like, for just paperwork nightmare. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's just mine. Like, I don't know how it's going to happen. And thankfully, I had trained with David Nagel, who's a wealth coach years ago. And so I knew how to energetically own something, material or immaterial. And so that manifestation could happen. And the reason I wanted to tell the story, because when we just found a bear scat a minute ago, Lucky came in right before the property closed. It took us about 8 weeks to close the property, which was insanely fast. And I knew because there was bear scat all over the property. And I'm like, I think I need a dog. And Indy'd been wanting a dog for about 5 years. We had a lot of dogs, and then they all died, and we had a nice dog break for being in Mexico more. So she comes in, and this is really the story I wanted to tell. We're hanging out at the Rock. We maybe owned the property for 2 weeks. She's maybe 10 weeks old. So she's like this big of a dog. And the bear comes running through, and she just takes off. And like, the bear's like this big. She's like this big, and she's like, I know what I'm here to do. So the reason I wanted to tell that story is because that's really the fractal. It's like, you do know what you're here to do. Mm-hmm. And there can be a lot of... Am I speaking loud enough? Yeah. Mm-hmm. There can be a lot of cultural confusion that was thrown in along the way. You know, sometimes with trauma, and sometimes with just the immersion of culture can be so pathological to your prakriti. So, you know, even the more sensitive you are, the more invasive that is on to the etheric, subtle nature of your wisdom. And then the more physical you are, the more toxic the food system is to your physiology, so that you're just working and you're living in chemical warfare. You're living in chemical warfare. And that's all now. That's all this vidya, the word in Sanskrit. That's all what some of us may believe that we signed up for. Right? So we signed up to live through the ecological destruction. We signed up to live through biochemical warfare at the grocery store. We signed up to live through massive materialism crashing. Right? We signed up to live through massive technological innovation that gives us access to more information than we can possibly use, and have literally a life of leisure compared to any other time in humanity historically. Where you have running water, you have heat, you have clothing, you have shelter, right? And you have so much potential. More so than any other time in history. And so what are you signed up to do as a 10-week-old puppy chasing the bear down the trail? Right? Like that, you've known that. You have known that since you were a pup. And that's the fractal. Now, I'm so hesitant to use the word work. I really like the word quirk. I don't know why, but like years ago, and it's like, it's a lot of work. And I'm like, but not really, because I have running water and roof over my head. And like, there's plenty of food. There's more than enough food. Right. Like, it's like, let's be serious. Like, let's be real here. Like, it's not work. It's asking you to grow. Let's still give food to us. Oh, I'm so happy. She can go either way, where she can like totally ditch and be like, nah, I've lost my best friend's dog who's in Finland, or she can actually like, it's so good with this dog. So that part that asks you to grow is uncomfortable. And there's an expectation that it won't be. And I I was reading in the other, I think it's called The Other Kingdom. I'll pull it when we go back to the house. It's a book written by two ministers in conjunction with Peter Block, who wrote Community. And Peter Block, who wrote Community, has probably done the most work with corporate and community and written the most about it. So I think he has 10 or 15 books on community. And I've learned a lot. And many of you notice like this style of leadership. Has anyone never experienced this style of leadership where like you get a bunch of pieces of paper and like are told to like go figure it out? Yeah. Right? Right, Jerry? It's like, for some people, it's really disappointing who are used to like, but there needs to be an authority, right? Like I need to write it down, just that training. So Peter's very instrumental in that. And he, in this book, and then maybe I'll read a paragraph from it. It's kind of disturbing, but the message around it is that the work shouldn't be hard is toxic to the code. It's toxic to the genetic code because the work being hard is what makes us human. The growth being something that is uncomfortable and being willing to reach, being willing to strive. It's in every story across time. It's in the archetype. It's in the hero's journey. It's in the heroine's journey. Something must die. It must die. It's very, very clear in the mythology, which is the archetypes of our psyche. That something has to die. Right? So some pathology that is caught up in the fractal, right, is dying. And that deciding of cutting off, decide to cut off, right? Cut off is like that cutting off of like, okay, that worked for them. And maybe it wasn't even pathology then. Maybe it's functionality then. Does not work for the next phase. Doesn't get to come on the journey. You got to take off that, which is no longer true. In blessing for the service that it provided, the lesson it provided, the growth, the Agni, the law of accumulation that got from there to there. So like Crystal and I were talking this morning, and I wanted to know more about her work in corporate. And she was just kind of like, but I'm, on. And I'm like, no, like there's like gems. I need to know what they are so I can really help you bring them in to this next phase. Right. And that's part of my gift as visionary leader is I'm really good at helping people see things that they might discount in themselves and help them maximize. So part of what we talked about yesterday with like the 80-20 and the every act of creation is first an act of destruction, right? The Pablo Picasso quote. Yeah, I actually picked that up. It was the Picasso Museum in Paris with Indian Winston. It was 2019. It's the year we did the event in Berlin. Indy was like just Paris obsessed, like Francophile obsessed. We do have like 1/4 lineage on my side is French, so I was like, okay, we'll do it. And just seeing how Picasso would take, has anyone ever seen his Bull series?
Yeah.
And how he takes it down to the line? Like he takes everything down to one line. Right. And the bull, it's like, don't forget the testicles, right? Like, don't forget the part that drives the horns, And so it's that essence. It's the fractal behind the bull. And the bull, the human as bull, is the devil incarnate. It's Jordan Peterson talks a lot about mastering, that we have to master the power, right? And that's what Picasso was pointing to in a lot of those bull human drawings. It's like, how do we master the carnate part of ourselves, of that deep raw power? And what that's saying in non-duality is that there's like no part of you that's not sacred, right? And so if anything is disowned, if anything's been disowned in the growth of your fractal, is it has to be incorporated back because it's part of the sacred anomaly that is you, right? The paradox. So I think we can drop the expectation that the breakthrough cycle is comfortable. And so what in the other kingdom, what they're writing about is that culture wants you to believe the myth that it's comfortable, because that is the myth in which they can control you as a consumer. In all of Peter Block's work, I talk about consumer versus creator. He talks about consumer versus citizen. So when you take back your rights as a citizen, right, it's the same. That the citizens are creating the community. The citizens are creating the rules. The expectation that your growth and that destruction should be comfortable and should be easy, and that you should know how to do it, and you should rely on the skills that you already have, right, is not true. And so when we're in a growth community, it's so helpful to be able to cheer each other on when someone's in the depth of the breakdown. If you're like, it does. I can be here with you because there's nothing else I can do for you. Because you got to do it. I can't do it for you. I can be here with you. Even, and this is where it gets totally nuts in the pit of the pit of the pit, even when you don't want to believe that anyone is here for you. Yeah, I'm like, Heather knows this work. Like the deep body workers are like, yeah. When you're like, no. And the tissue's like, no.
I'll hold you.
I will hold you. Yeah. So my sense in a way is like the more, especially those of you who get your call to leadership and get the concept of club and membership and however that's showing up in leadership in yourself and in willingness to be with those who know more than you about what you're trying to learn next, right? That never ends. My sense is that there's a rising capacity and capability of being able to release into that psychic support that is around you. Because so much of what got you to here is that you can do it alone. Because that's what Western culture is taught you, right? Because you're a way better consumer, right? When we can control all of that. What does Marianne Williams call it? That soft, furry animal body. I think it's Marianne Williamson, right? That soft, furry animal body. Like when we can manipulate and control that, because you can't be held in that.
Feeling stuck in modern life's chaos? You're not alone. I'm Kate Stillman, and I know that chronic inflammation isn't just stealing your health, it's limiting your entire future. Those symptoms you're battling, they're not your fault. They're the price of modern living. But here's what changes everything: strategic living. In Club Thrive, we don't just heal your body, we help you design your next chapter. Our proven system guides you to steer your life strategically, building financial resilience and a lifestyle beyond your current dreams. Ready to see who you could become? Visit clubthrive.global and click free training to take the Future You quiz. After the quiz, you'll receive a free 15-minute session with me, yours truly, to map out your deeper dreams. If Club Thrive is your path to purpose, we'll both know.
So the breakthrough cycle, right? We see it everywhere. We're at the time of the season, the service berries are drying on the trees. So the bears have food for longer. They can come back down into the valley because the valley has food in it, and then the bears will go into their hibernation, right? And we have that cycle of sometimes, like especially after an experience like this, where you have to go in to allow the processing to just happen and unfold, and the deeper insight to naturally then percolate and ready to emerge in the breakthrough. And in the breakthrough, there's a bit of that like, oh my gosh, I got it. And then it's like smackdown number one. Round one. And you're like, I got it. Round two, right? And there's the humility process in that of like, okay, who's my people set? Who knows how to do this? Who knows where I am? Knows the smackdown number 3 that I'm about to happen, right? Right? It can be like, okay, yeah, these are the signs. Bring it into slow motion, right? And so then you can be like, oh, okay. And so with each breakdown, breakthrough, the fractal gets truer. It's like the truing of the wheel that we talked about. It becomes more true. And then there's more ease. So there is more ease. And there is more law of accumulation. So lastly, at the end, Kristen asked this great question in Fire Circle. What was it? How did you word it? I don't want to, like, Kristen's really great with words. She helps my company with wording. So it's great. How did you word it?
I'm trying to remember. I think I was asking about when it comes to fractals, how much of it is destiny or fate versus free will?
What was the next question about the easier? Was it?
Oh,
easier?
we got into alignment. Yeah. And I was curious, does it get easier or does it get harder as you build capability?
Right. This is a really good question. As you build capability, does it get easier or does it get harder? Right? And so with law of accumulation, you all can see law of accumulation in your life where the skills you built, just so many of you have done really deep healing and wellness work. And you can see how that accumulates so that when your shit hits the fan now, like you do know what to do. You do know where to take your issues. You know your people set, and you also know your inner skill set and tool set. So you're building in your law of accumulation, right? And so that means you can handle bigger breakthrough cycle. It means your dharma is bigger. And then because of that, and because growth follows an exponential curve because of the 80-20 curve, right? It curves, right? It's not linear growth, right? It curves. And this is so important that it's like, oh, what is the inflection point? There's so many, and as it goes into the curve, there's so many more inflection points that are significant than linear growth. And linear growth doesn't keep growing, it goes to collapse, right? Because nature is in curvy growth. This is where you see like, oh, the market changed and all these people lost their jobs, or all these people had no identity, or right. So because you have more capacity and capability, and because by looking back and looking forward constantly, you're like, oh, it's curving, you're more able to navigate and to see ahead of like, okay, now I can take the lessons of the past and really leverage to the vision of the future. I've learned vulnerability and humility. Like at some point, it's like that clicks on a deep level, no matter how, manifest destiny and like the individual pursuit of happiness, like no matter how much that programming was really strong, got to do it the hard way, got to do it alone, get it done, got to, what is that one about? I got to do it if it gets done right kind of mentality.
Yeah. Right, or get it right or get it done.
Yeah, exactly. That mentality, right? It's like oh no, I need to look more skillfully. I need to really be skillful. And then there's more capacity and capability and joy, right? And connectivity and ease. Because now it's easier to do the bigger things. Yeah. I was listening to I watched 2 or 3 1-minute shorts this morning when I was doing my and I hadn't heard this story. Alex Hormozi talked about this food company. Has anyone seen that one? I think it just came out. A year. They spent a year trying to build a food company. It had a 7% profit margin, and it was like, and he like starts the video with a paper shredder and money, and he's like,
That's hilarious.
Right? That's the vulnerability and humility. Like, there were lessons learned. Right? and that's how it goes, breakdown, breakthrough.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
So you're saying about like we're here to grow and it'll be uncomfortable and you know we go through these cycles. Can you speak to the part about like when we're in our zone of genius, like things go easy and like sometimes when we feel like we're in our vertical time, it's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So somehow intertwine that with this growth.
Yeah. Honey, get to the honey away from the bears. Yeah. Yeah, and this to me is the ojas, right? Where and I think everyone has heard from everybody here the call to sacred silence, and the call to depth practice, and the call to the mat in the kitchen, and they're just being together with nothing happening, with no thingness, right? Where all of the sparkly prana is just ready to be turned into bodily, like to say sustenance, it's very, very subtle, very deep sustenance is what ojas is. It's the subtle concept of oneness and nourishment. And it has to be cultivated. And the older you get, the more consciously the calling to cultivate or pay the price. And the price is pain. Physical pain. Like not like a emotional, psychic pain, like physical pain. Yeah. So the basking in what's working, and that's why with design thinking, you always start with what's working. You always start with like, this is working. Because it's so easy to wake up and be like, oh my gosh, like, case of the, I call them the case of the fuck it. It's like, so many things, and you're just like, fuck it. And so many people live and they're just like, fuck it. And then connectivity's down, creativity's down, like there's no maximization, the practice not happening. It's just like, I gotta get through the day, get to the wine. right? Right, just like get through this and
Waiting for the weekend.
And it's not always wine. My Mormon relatives use sugar instead, use carbs. It creates the same effect. Yeah, white flour, white sugar works amazing. Crisco, still a thing. Yeah. Nothing, whatever. We all have our thing. Weed. Yeah, gratitude, the science on gratitude is insane, right? Like, works every time. And with gratitude, what more of you are noticing, and I've heard a lot in our 2s and 3s, is like my dharma is clearly here to serve, right? And there's a recognition, no matter how inadequate or uncertified you feel, right? But there's always people that you recognize that are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 steps back. And so the service is for those who haven't come here yet. And then those who are serving you are those who've already walked the steps ahead of you. And that's it. Like, it's not more complicated. And those people who've walked ahead of you may be younger, right? They may only have half of their shit together. And but in that area. And not in this other area. So it's like not looking for this perfect, not looking to put someone on a pedestal only to have them fall, only to go into drama, into your drama, not theirs around, right? It's just that distraction cycle starts to go away. And then my other sense is that, like in the 4 sets of tool set, skill set, mindset, people set, like in the right mindset, attracts the right people set, right? And the building of the skills and tools makes you more attractive to the people set, because we need those from each other. We need each other to be skillful and to be able to use whatever tools we need right now, right? With a level of expertise. Like my new CRM guy is in Ali, and my new Packies are amazing because we're just like, can you do this? And they're like, it's done. It's like that. Like they're able to just like, this is their skill set and their tool set. They're in their happy place. And then my sense is that ojas is built in the like pause and receiving that. right? If it's like, this is the land of milk and honey. So like even in my dark night of the soul, which had a lot of physical pain, and I lost a lot of weight, and things were completely falling apart everywhere, except for in my child and husband were cool. But like everywhere else, siblings, company, like all the things. Like my coach just had me focus on like just the large breasted goddess, essentially, like feeding everything and just resting. So that's always there. Like the ground of being is always there to nourish, even in the depth of the breakdown. But then in the breakthrough times, it's like so important to refill that you're like, oh, I'm in a breakthrough time, you know, like I'm, you know, and like really fill cellularly. My sense, like those of you who are plugged in somewhat or find it a helpful perspective or naturally have like a multiple lifetime embodied experience, is that also will pull a lot of power and strength. Like it's not random that the system that produces Dalai Lamas, right, has that as a mindset. It's so rooted, and this is what works. This is what is working now in the matrix of now. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's really all about perspective. If you didn't have your community, the right people set, the right skill set, your breakthrough could be really crappy and the hardest thing ever. But if you have things in place, you can get through it, and in it you will, because you have the capacity and capability, that resilience is there to get you what you need to then have that breakthrough.
Yeah, and then, you know, with the tools, it's like, I just call it 4 sets: mindset, skill set, people set, tool set, because it's easy to remember and it's easy in the moment to use as a problem solving tool. So the harder the breakdown was, you often notice like, who was not in my people set? Like in Witch's Cancer Journal, like there's a few characters that are like, ooh, the devil, you know, like that doctor was the devil. Interesting, right? And it's like that then might be foreshadowing, right, to later, where it's like, oh, I probably won't go to the devil's office.
By choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up there.
I'll choose, right? I'll develop my people set more so that my choice is for the right people set when the shit hits the fan. Because shit will hit the fan.
Yeah.
You're packing for your journey.
You're packing
underground.
Yeah. More and more skillfully. Like one of the things that came up in Living Ayurveda about 5 years ago with helping people develop their healing teams, right? And so thankfully I had a lot of that developed, but I didn't have it in certain key areas where it's like, oh, okay, now that's filled in, right? And so having a framework is crucial. So if you know you're missing skills, you are. Like when I tell you wellness program, I'm like, you are all, you know, except for people like Crystal, who's already worked in sales and has a sense of marketing and project management and all these tools that she's bringing, right? It's like, okay, we're gonna leverage the fuck out of that. Because you already had to go through dictions. You already went through initiations in order to build those tools. Right? You're just born with it. Your skills. You already learned skills. You already learned how to use tools with skills. Yay! Right? So now there's like a next piece of like, for you, it's like club structure, right? And club systems. It'll be easier. We find people going from corporate into club structure or other jobs into club structure, hands down, 10 times easier than wellness pros. Because they're like, there's a structure. I hate marketing. Oh my gosh, we have so much before we can even build a system. Like it's just right. But they're genius healers, and their work's not embedded into the transformation in the community because they won't often go through the breakthrough. So that's what we do, slowly holding hands, hugging. Right, Heather? And you're not alone, are you? You're not alone. We're not alone. And I was, it's all stuff I had to walk through too. Just want to be found. I want people see my brilliance. That was like me, like 28 to like 34. All right, how are we doing on time? I babbled long enough.
20 more minutes.
20 minutes. All right, so let's just take a moment and in your journals, just name the breakdown. Name what's breaking down. You've already done this, so this is not a new question. You did this yesterday a few times, the 80%. But maybe there's another level or layer of a belief that is now breaking down. And maybe the belief was subconscious and now it's becoming more conscious. So to me, like unconscious and subconscious is like universal energy. There's so much richness. It's all Shiva, so much richness. And as it comes to light, it can bring so much energy. Just clarity on your breakdown, and maybe on a more subtle level, and maybe at the level of a belief of like, and it can be so like victim-y. I'm the only one who has to. Poor me, I can't let go of, well, everybody needs me to, like any of those might be breaking down. I can't because one of the core questions I got from Peter Block, and I do have an interview, I'll put it on Club Track TV with Peter, and I think I'll invite him back. Yeah, he's just gem. It's like, what is the crossroads at your life right now? So the crossroads, another way this is used in integral and sometimes corporate communities, like what's the inflection point? If you're at a point on the curve where it's like, if you make the right decisions, and by right, it's like true to the fractal, true to your unique snowflake fractal, right? It gets really good. It might be uncomfortable and challenging, but it's really good. It's really aligned. And if you don't do that thing and you just drink IPAs in the hot tub, not speaking personally, then it doesn't go up, it goes down, or it goes sideways. That term, going sideways. What is the crossroads? And some of you might draw, like you're on a road and there's a crossroads. There's a road that it's either going across or it V's. You'll see it in different ways. You're at a crossroads. So the idea of a crossroads, the reason he's using that word is you're already going straight. So you're always already on a trajectory. But the crossroads is now you've got options. So what are some of these options that change it? And the point of fractals and 80/20 is it changes it exponentially. It doesn't change it linear growth. It changes it exponential. Whether growth is fulfillment, whether growth is financial, whether growth is people set, skill set, tool set. And then the next question is people set, like who's showing up? Who's showing up in your people set? So this receptivity, this Lynn's question and my answer around like learning how to receive. And it's not Pollyannish. It's not a like just jump and leap for safety kind of. It's more of a very slow noticing, slowing down to notice. Whose energy are you attracted to? Mm-hmm. Whose energy are you repulsed by? Like where it's just like house cleaning time. And just the image that comes up, like we've had a lot of animals in the house, and we've had a lot of defecation happening in random places for very specific reasons. We even had like a bird trapped in the cat. Like there's just been like things of like cleaning up in the animal kingdom for me this spring. And that's what it can feel like with people set. If it's just like, I don't want to clean that stuff up anymore. I did that when I've done that. I'm not going to keep doing that. Not sure if that images. But that's what you might tune into is like, where is it like, no, I'm like good with, not going to recreate that. I'm going to go towards the nectarines. So who's showing up? What energy is attractive? What skills and tools and mindset do those people have? So the 4 works. Like truing the wheel, like they're all spokes that keep reinforcing each other to bear the weight. So what mindset needs to be around you at this curve? And what the part of the like, the piles of defecation, like which is divine, but like what is not working? Like where is it just like that's repelling? And sometimes that's scary, so I just want to name that. But sometimes that's really scary to look at. Right? Because you might not know how, but don't worry about the how right now. Like how is strategy. We'll deal with that a little bit after lunch. It's just more the what. So we're naming in the next troika the critical issues. Right now, like dig for what you're over, and dig for the light that's coming in. The who's, who, not how, is what Dan Sullivan really captured in the book Who, Not How. That concept of like who, for the right who's, know how. So you don't have to know how. You need to know what. What's breaking down in your people set. There can be breakdowns in your tool set and skill set where, don't worry, they're not going away, but you don't need them for this next part of the journey. So when Winston and I first did Marie Kondo, top to bottom, it was like, oh, I'm no longer an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner. Oh, I'm no longer a Panchakarma therapist. Oh, I have all this stuff. I have all these tools set up. I have 100 herbs in stock. I have a Shirodara set, a massage table. I have yoga prompts. 5 years later, closing down the yoga studio. Now I've got like 30 sets of yoga prompts. I have a building. I'm like, it's done. That phase is done. So what is breaking down? Like it'll still be there. You'll still know how to do it. You'll still know how to use those tools. I'll still use some of those yoga mats. But that part's done for now. It's interesting when I look at that because I was stocking all these plants. A lot of them were imported from India. As many Ayurvedic practitioners are taught the herbology that's not native to where they are, but they're taught imported herbology. And that was increasingly uncomfortable for me. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is clearly not Ayurveda. Ayurveda was always local, right? And then this land comes, and I had already grown a very strong relationship with the local ecosystem, which is why the land came in. But if I hadn't been able to let go of the Ayurvedic practitioner importing plants from India and being able to concoct these very specialized formulas for the people that would come for Ayurveda, right? If I hadn't been willing to die on the cross, right? Then we would not, I promise you, we would not be sitting here right now. So what is that What is that for you? Like, what has to die on the cross? Skill set, tool set.
Is that house supported with property?
No. Yeah, that's Mr. Christensen. He's lived here for about 80 years. He's born in the valley. So this is Greenville, and then the Christensens are here, and they've got 100 acres that's been subdivided to the families, and then the Wilsons are there, and the 3 families of Alta. In this part. Yeah, yeah. Our land does go under the creek to the other side. That's how it rolls. But I hope Mr. Christensen lives forever. He's a gem. Okay, you guys got your skills, tools down. Is anyone unclear? Does anyone need a little Q&A or a little troubleshooting? Or is it evident?
Can I ask one question along this line?
Yeah.
Dan had this question too. We shared this in a group yesterday about the 80-20.
Yeah.
As we're letting go of the 80% and we're moving into an up-leveling to our 20%, wouldn't it stand to reason that the 20% then turns into your next 80%?
Yes,
so
always.
it becomes a constant cycling, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there has to be a constant shedding and letting go of the old in order to bring in the new.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add about that?
Well, and that's where it's like there's some part of the psyche, and I've been through this a lot internally with my own mindset. It's like there's some part of the psyche that's not like, I know how to do breakdown, breakthrough. You know, and then it's like smack down. You know, it's like not at this level.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is it in corporate? Like the team that got you here, the team that gets you there. Right? That's people set. But it's also the tech stack that worked yesterday. It's not the tech stack that's going to work tomorrow. Tool set. Who knows how to use that? People and tools, skill set, right? And how is everyone aware? Like the visionary mindset, right? Like where are we going, with who and how, right? And that mindset of that, the vision of that encompasses the people, the tools, and the skill. So what we do get used to, though, I think to like Lynn's point, like land of milk and honey, like there's gotta be some
reward.
Relief. Reward, relief. Yeah.
So on that 80-20 and the constantly shedding, when there's some taking of the 20, and there's that process in the spiral where you're growing that 20 to be the 80. It doesn't just like instantly become the 80. It's that taking that 20 and like embodying it and growing it into the 80 is that part of the growth cycle, and then the depth cycle is the next. Okay, now it's at the 80. And so now what's the 20? What's the 80% of that that's now getting shed, as opposed to like always shedding? Right?
Yeah. There's the maturation. It's
Yeah.
like, well, think of corn. I think of corn.
Yeah.
So Lita Schultz, likes to grow corn.
Right. Okay.
And then she makes these like, what is it called? Scarecrows. Right? These crazy scarecrows with like bear skulls and like whatever she can find in the woods. It's like incredible art. This is Wisty wherever. Oh, Wisty, this is Wisty's. Hello, Wisty. This is Wisty's 18-year-old. So I was thinking when you're saying that, it's like you plant the corn kernel, right? You water it and it pulls and it grows this whole stalk and these leaves, and the kernels are in this husk and the silk and there's all that, and then like at the end, like you're eating the corn, and then you're replanting the corn, and then the whole right? So it's not. It can feel constant though. So I think there's a little bit of both and where you're just like, does anyone feel like it just hasn't stopped? Yeah. And so sometimes it's important to realize, like in certain phases, you're in the rest phase. You're in the pause, and then in other lines of your trajectory, you're in the like hard work phase. And other phases, you're like just eating the buttery kernels phase. So if you're in the eating butter kernels phase, like pause, like slow that down. Slowly. Taste, smell. Has anyone heard Alan Watts on cooking? Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm an incarnation of Alan Watts sometimes. Not really, because I'm not as smart as he is, but just total resonance. But he talks about like a cook by definition cannot rush.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot rush. And so in the breakdown cycle, to me, this is so important with cancer. So it was like, be here. Don't not want to be here. Like just be all, and no one wants you to be there. Especially cancer. Like there's other things that we might be like, it's okay if you do your healing journey. Cancer, like get out. Right? Like no one can handle it.
Like your family.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, like your family. Yeah. Yeah. She could handle it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no one wants to. It's just like, is it better yet? Right? Can you be done? Can you be done with that like death darkness thing? No, that whole like emaciation thing. Can you just be normal? Can you just be done? Can we be done with this chapter? Can we just watch Netflix, please, and chill? Yeah. Right? So it's like there's no part of it that we need to rush through. And I think anyone who's doing the trauma work and emotional processing work and like can I be with what's arising, right? Okay, so mindset. So we're living in such an age where everyone that I've heard from feels nature deprived. Like that there's just not enough time in nature, like with the plants, with the earth, with the sky, with the water, with the sun, it's just not, like we're so in the screen, we're so in the to-do list, we're so in all of the things, maybe in a car or moving ourselves from here to there. And then our way of learning has changed really dramatically. Like I'm trying to learn how to read again. Is anyone else trying to learn how to read again? Yeah. Right? You're like, I take in everything audio, visual, and just that like slowing, that delight of, I know you have forgotten how to read this. You're part of my people set.
You got this.
You and my mom. Kelly. Here's a book. Here's the cat. Here's your glasses. So if you look at, when you choose a book, and it's hard because there's so many good books and there's so many good books, right? But that slowness of like, what am I ingesting? What can my mind consume? That's in that alignment of the trajectory. And then I know a lot of you are processing mindsets that are just so expiring, so outdated. They might show up in an emotion, rage or sorrow or guilt or shame or maybe a potpourri. And just realizing the level of toxicity of that and the processing. So sacred science, and then in Uninflamed or Primal Habits, the chapter where you're working directly with your psyche, the practices and the plants that work directly with psyche and others and other human-made chemical substances derived from plants can really change things fast. And so with mindset, the monitoring of like what is done, where you're taking in too much or the wrong direction, and what will feed your mind. What will protect your psyche. It's funny how sometimes like with the stream, we've been around those like artificial water fountains a lot. Like we forget that it's real. Or that the water coming down the creek, it was kind of cool. It wasn't like those from day one. It was like we're way up, we're all up the creek, and now we're down the creek, and the water gets more prana as it comes down from the mountain. And that healing, like just the healing nature of the sound. and the feeling of the wind on the skin and like how much that shifts the mind. So what is your mind medicine?
So how much do we need to be aware of what is shedding versus like I'm stuck on the do you really need to know why? Just let it go. Right?
Yeah.
So how much credence, weight, because I think there is
I asked
things
Addie that
need to be
yesterday.
put to have attention to that in some cases, but in other cases it's just
More story,
it's
more drama.
it's dead. It doesn't matter. It's just going to make everything. Just let it go.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am right now.
It does. Humans make meaning. So there's part of that, right? Like that we make meaning, and it's why Jordan Peterson wrote Maps of Meaning. It's like we are meaning makers as a species, right? Our species makes meaning, and we crystallize that meaning in story, right? And so the whole rewriting the memories to work for future you, right? So it's like crystallizing the experience, what was useful.
I guess that's the key is acknowledging and processing what
For you there.
I know.
Oh,
I'm getting
just get ready.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you can answer the question next because I want to hear.
Okay.
I wanna hear you.
I have thoughts.
Yeah.
So in terms of like why something, often when I'm with somebody and in the soft tissue and the joints and the skeleton, do you need to know why? Is usually the first question I ask. And then what is going to serve you by knowing why? Because often the why is extra weight. And if you're willing to walk away from it, then you get that lighter sensation to be able to move into the next 20% of feeling stronger, feeling more embodied, feeling more connected with who you truly are, rather than dwelling on something that doesn't necessarily serve who you are becoming and who you are in the moment. And one of our body's like most amazing gifts is that we don't have to consciously understand why our bodies are doing something. Our bodies will automatically find their way to wellness and health without us having to consciously be like, it happened because of X, Y, Z, and therefore A, B, C. We don't always have to move into that pattern ourselves. It is totally okay, and sometimes I feel like way more beneficial to just not know why.
Well, and it can be too early, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be too, like you're not going to really know until,
Until years and years later.
like, oh, that's what that was.
So if you're just spinning your wheels, trying to understand, you might be
Yeah,
better
it's
to
up
just
here
let
instead
go
of-
and trust that it'll come to you when
Because
you're ready.
the message may not
Yeah.
serve you in the moment. The message will come and serve you when it's ready and when you're ready.
I find too, like the mind, it's so loud and its desire to find the why that you can't hear the tissue talking. Right. And like yesterday, it was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is what that just said. Right. But if I hadn't, because Addie got me out of the why and the meaning making. And so I could hear the tissue talk. Right. Not that I was trying to make the tissue talk either. It was just like, all of a sudden it was like very loud.